Okay, so in this upcoming new moon in Leo opposing Saturn in Aquarius felt like the right time to share some of my thoughts on a subject I've been thinking about for quite a while. And the reason I have held back from sharing it is because it felt like a potentially an inflammatory topic, and therefore somewhat taboo for me. And so just the other day, as I do regularly, I was doing some research of my own into myself, meaning just something was coming up for me and I was identifying what in my chart could this be, and I hone in on this area in my chart where I have never looked at it in that way and discovered some stuff there that was like little light bulb insights were firing up left, right and center. And one of them was that I have Black Moon Lilith in Gemini conjunct my Mercury with Vesta. And so one of the things that I found that resonated deeply was that I'm drawn to taboo subjects. I have antennas for them, but I have been, as Black Moon Lilith has been, her story has been of banishment because she dared to speak about something that was not okay to be uttered, like when she rebelled against Adam and his demands of her submissiveness, for her submissiveness. And so anyway, so my point with this is that it was like an extra encouragement to be that now is the time to talk about this topic that feels somewhat tabooish for me. And then I looked at, as I always do, looked at the etymology of the word, and taboo is essentially, I don't think there is an actually Latin origin to it, but it's Maori, Proto-Polynesian, Proto-Oceanic, and it's all about prohibition, but also what's sacred and holy, and restricted, and so maybe restricted knowledge, right? So the topic is about, it's a call or it's an invitation or I'm making a case for greater transparency for all readers, astrology, human design, numerology, tarot even, and I would even expand that to any service that anyone provides for another person, like one-to-one support, to be transparent in a way that in a very specific way, to reveal and make their chart, astrological chart, human design chart, gene keys chart, any other numerology chart, I'm not sure what other charts there are out there, make them available publicly, like an upfront on their website or on any other platforms that they use. And I'll tell you why I think this is so important. And sorry, I started by kind of tying this in with the moon in Leo, a new moon in Leo opposing Saturn in Aquarius. So Saturn in Aquarius is about professional integrity of all those professions that are Aquarian in nature. So astrology is definitely one of them. Human design, absolutely, if you ask me. And those are the two ones that I am fluent in, so I'm not going to expand further. But and Saturn is integrity, right, and professionalism within that. And then Moon in Leo, on the other hand, is our moon, right, our hypersensitivity, our neediness, our sense or need for safety, and safety, I suppose, is the key word here, regarding our audiences, right? So our sensitivity to how we are received by our audiences, and whether they're applauding us, and whether they like us, or whether they don't like us. And by audience, I don't mean just potential clients. Well, actually, I do mean potential clients. I mean the audience, which is full of potential clients for anyone who puts themselves out there and teaches and shares their knowledge of either of these disciplines or any other that are esoteric in nature to their audiences, that from that pool of individuals they get clients. And so that's why this is a good time to talk about this, I feel. So let me tell you a story of mine, or a couple of them actually, examples why this has come up for me, particularly in the last few months, which is, like I said, I've been brewing on this and I wanted to talk about it. And I chose live because I don't have time limit then. Okay, so I don't know, a few months ago I was listening to an astrologer that I had all their books. I love their teachings. I love the astrology. They have taught me so much. And so they were talking about a particular archetype. It was Neptune and Leo kind of combination. And I was like listening to them, and every step of the way as they was describing what that means and how you can embody that, I kept just going, no. I was just kept disagreeing with them, with myself, as I was listening. And of course, there's nothing wrong with disagreeing with your teachers or anyone, but there was more to this. It was like, I was curious as to why, what they were saying, why they were saying what they were saying. And that, because that would have helped me learn that very archetype even better. So what I've done, figured out their date of birth, vaguely speaking, not with the time of birth, and honing on the language of what they were speaking, on the Neptune and also some other aspects they had, and it just lit up the scene, lit up everything that they spoke in a completely different light. So I understood now why they were saying what they were saying. And so if I knew that up front, if I was able to quickly either check their chart on their website, which I couldn't, or if as they spoke, they kind of, reframe or prefaced their speaking. This is, my experience of this because of, and then they name their aspects that are influencing this view of theirs that they're sharing with the world, right? That in itself is an invaluable lesson. That in itself is how we learn even more deeply astrology, for instance, and this is just an example of astrology. And so I feel, so what they reminded me is how many times in the past where I didn't even, in my early days of studying astrology, so that's in my teens and in my 20s, I was relying on those teachers, those, books mostly before internet and then eventually internet as well, to tell me who I am, or to give me language for my problems that I was facing, or for my talents and my skills that I kind of could tell I have, but I wasn't sure whether that is that and what it does. So astrology was a great clarifier, right? And so I was taking a lot of it for granted because that's, that's what I did, as in I had no clear and loud no to what they were sharing and what I was learning. But I remember that actually my yeses were often not the full-blown yes. They were always like, yeah, okay, I can see that, but it was that kind of very mental appreciation and a comprehension of what I was reading, and not so much a sense of that is who I am, right? But I had no way of knowing why that is and whether that is a good or bad thing, right? And so looking back on my journey with astrology, I can say that I was going to give a number, I don't know, a few years, maybe even a whole decade, I don't know exactly, but for a long period of time, I actually carried qualities that I felt this archetype of mine in my chart does stand for, but not in my own experience of it. And eventually I realized that's my own skill of discernment and interpretation of astrology, or, and then human experience against it, right? I realized that actually those were not precise enough or clear enough or even accurate enough interpretation of those placements and charts, archetypes, right? And so what I'm saying is that I have gone down I went on diversions. I went on journeys that took me places that were not of my own and not relevant to me, because the teachings I took for granted. And so if someone's now listening to me and or whenever I'm teaching or speaking about astrology in astrology itself, right? Not just me now talking about view of astrology. I always try to remind them of, this isn't because I have, Venus in Aries, or because I have Moon in Capricorn, or whatever else. That is why I'm so hell-bent on figuring this particular thing in the way that I am figuring it out. And so back to this recent example, if I knew their chart, this teacher that I was listening to, I would have, like I say, learned about astrology, and also would have not felt like no, I don't feel that's for me. I don't want to adopt this advice that they're maybe giving because it doesn't feel right. But I'm by now well versed in astrology language. Another example, why I think it's so important that we have, we are upfront with our charts. This is who I am. These are my filters. This is when I teach astrology or when I teach anything. Please check my chart, and if you're astrologically fluent or fluent enough, you will know whether that's for you, whether you can relate, whether you have similar aspects yourself. And then when I teach those qualities, I'm your teacher because you have that too, so I can just tease it out for you more easily. So this other example is less astrological in the sense that this person who I adore and I follow them, they're a writer. And so they talk about discipline of writing and how to, produce good quality creative writing and all this stuff. And I love I love their work and everything they do, but I'm so frustrated over and over again with how disciplined they are and how disciplined I'm not. And I just feel like crap every time I watch the video because I feel I love them and I love what they're sharing, but I can't do that. I can't be that disciplined. But if I knew the chart, and I eventually figured out what it could be, because like I said, they're not an astrologer, so they even wouldn't know how to make a chart, I presume. But if they did, I would also say, please make it upfront and available. So I know when you speak of discipline and you're so good at it, you're really coming from, and I figured out what they had. They had Mars and Saturn conjunct in Virgo. I mean, of course they live and breathe discipline. It's their sense of mastery and authority and vitality, and of course they're good at it. I have none of that. In fact, discipline is a big problem for me in my life, and I know in my chart why it is like that, and I'm almost like waiting for someone like me with my wonky, undisciplined aspects and placements to teach me discipline. Do you see what I mean? But I won't know that, so I'll go on many courses, I'll pay many monies, and to be taught something I can't learn. I actually cannot learn. I can be inspired by, and I can try some tips, and from that particular person I've tried so many tips and I have followed them for a while, but then I just give up because it doesn't speak to me, because I have nothing like they do, for instance, in this case, right? So that's why it's like, so it keeps us in integrity if we are upfront with what our filters are, so that when people choose to work with us, sorry, hello. Oh, hello, was Candice and Alice. Thank you for your comments. Yes, this is so crucial. Thank you. I appreciate that support, because I do feel like it's a bit of a edgy subject and a bit uncomfortable. I don't want to upset anyone who maybe does not have the chart available to everyone to read up front. But I do think it's so important. So let me just quickly recalibrate. Where was I? So it's how it keeps us in integrity, so that people can decide whether we are for them. Because if I'm teaching you something, I'm teaching you from my placements. So like my astrology teaching, and I'm going to have another video soon on how I study astrology. And everything in my chart speaks self-taught, autodidact. I don't really do well learning from others. Well, anyway, so my point is, unless you are like me, unless you are autodidact, unless you have the tendency and affinity, you will be wasting your money and time with me teaching you astrology. That's kind of what I want to say, really. So I don't want anyone to feel like they're wasting their money or time with me, because I would not want to feel like that. And so check my chart, and I speak of it up front as often as I remember, and it's often enough, and I hope anyway. So you know whether I can teach you, whether we have similarities, whether, my Venus in Aries, if you want to be bold and brash, I can teach you that, but you can't come to me from Venus in Cancer probably, because you will just not have that fire in you to cut through the relationship quagmire with that kind of fire and burn the bridges, yeah, because you should. Why not? And I can teach you how that's okay. But you need to either have Venus in Aries or strong Aries in you, or it's like in a 12th house, so it's like you need to access it, it's hard to access, or something like that. But if you have no Aries and you love the idea, then I'm not your teacher. You need to find someone else who will teach you that, right? So that's where I'm coming from. There was another piece to this, that I also felt why it's important to have our chart up front, it almost feels like when a client comes to us, we ask them to pour their souls to us. And as in, not, well, sometimes literally, or they actually literally do that, but more to the point that we see them naked. I mean, looking at one's chart is seeing you naked. Now, you have to be fluent in astrology to do that, to feel like you're seeing someone naked. But, so yeah, so there is that. So your clients might not be fluent, and seeing your chart up front might not mean much to them. But for me, at least, most of my clients are fluent enough to kind of get a sense of, very much enough sense of who I am, and see me kind of partially naked, maybe at least. But my point is, I want my clients to be my equals, as in, and my students and whoever I work with and my audiences, right? I want you to see me naked, not literally, that would be inappropriate, I feel, but yeah, my chart. So because I'm inviting you, if you're coming to work with me, to be naked with me, right? And so another story from my life, where I had this therapist who was a holistic therapist. So she was a therapist, I don't know if she was no, she wasn't Jungian, more traditional or conventional, something, I'm not sure. But she was a homeopath as well. And I was with her, I adore her, by the way, an Aries woman, Taurus rising. This is my point, right? So she was like such a good teacher for me. We were so compatible. But she was more evolved or better at those things that I'm still developing. She's older anyway. Anyway, so for 10 years I was on and off with her. And I arrived at a point where I was saying to her, I need you to start sharing yourself with me. I can't have this one way, you expert and me client, unequal relationship. Now, I know there are projections and, there's another word, trans something in therapy lingo. I get all that, but I still, it was such a pivotal moment after that. I stopped going with her. I mean, we didn't fall out or anything, but I went back years later for a couple of sessions. But my point is, it was like, I want to know where you are coming from when you are guiding me. Are you coming from a place of experience? You have lived this, or is it just theory? And the reason I say this, because if you're coming just from theory, then you cannot really understand how hard it is for me to do something that we are working on. You need to show me that you have been through this hell yourself. And so I can, it's not about respect or valuing. It's just like, okay, so I know, you know what you're talking about in terms of what I need to know, right? That you're talking to me, that you're actually relating, and your advice is relevant to me and applicable to me, and I can do it. I will be able to follow through with your advice because you've been through it as well. And as you share your experience of it, I will judge whether you are, what's the word, adequate guide for me, relevant, or there's a better word I can't think of now on the spot. And so hence this equality with our clients. If I'm asking them to give me their chart, then I want my chart to be available to them to view if they want to. And it is always online for me anyway. All the charts that I can put together are there. And I just think I may have kind of arrived to an end, abrupt and typical open throat style of communication. And I suppose there is one other piece there maybe in terms of sharing. So the client comes to you and they're sharing their guts and glory and pain and happiness or whatever. And of course, I'm providing a space and holding the space for them to unravel, and then offering feedback guided by the chart and all that. So of course, it's not equality in the sense of me now pouring myself to them so they feel equal. No, that obviously that would be wrong in my view, right, and inappropriate. But I need to be transparent and open about who I am and how I am elsewhere. So my content can't just be about the theory of astrology or again, I'm just saying that's for me, and I personally think it's the way to do it in integrity, right? My moon in Capricorn and Saturn in Aquarius, I think, are kind of joining together. I feel speaking in unison on this topic. And so my presence elsewhere online, available to those potential clients, needs to be very personal as well. I need to share my own dirty underwear. Obviously, not in a way of like just moaning about my life, but kind of using my own examples of how I'm working with some certain aspects and transits, but also how I'm as a human being, just like in plain sight. Not all of it is relevant, obviously, and it's not about what's the word, like being in the spotlight, me. No, it's not about that, but it's about, this is what I'm struggling with. These are my shadows as a shadow worker. This is what I can't get a hang of, or this is what I struggle with and all that. So you know, that's how you decide if I'm for you and if I can teach you. Yeah, so you get what you're either paying for or sorry, just checking for some comments. I think that's hi Candice, so lovely to see you. Okay, yes, so yeah, I think that might be it. Let me just quickly run through my brain to see if there was anything else. And maybe one last thing. So I know I'll offer this as a, I don't know what, a hook, so you can kind of latch on and maybe think about it yourself. I don't know. But so why would someone not show their chart? This was something I was wondering as well. And I was remembering when I wasn't keen on doing it. But this was not to do with astrology so much. Well, meaning clients, put it this way. No, it was to do with, because I had quite a few friends who were astrology fluent in my youth. And so I have Moon in Capricorn and Venus in Aries, and what else do I have? I can't remember. Saturn in 12th, I think, is also another bad one, right? Bad one. And so the traditional texts were slating these placements, like they were using, for Moon in Capricorn, they would always mention Hitler and Mussolini. I always thought, bloody hell. Anyway, so I had shame around my placements, and I felt guilty and I felt bad. This Venus is in Aries is the most selfish and harsh and horrible or whatever, and so that's why I hid my placements. But that was my chart, rather. But like I said, that was way before I even considered working with clients, which was a really late thing for me. I mean, I was originally, for 20 years at least, absolutely not interested in working with clients. It was all for me, astrology knowledge and studies. Anyway, so it was so I don't want people to judge me unfavorably because of my placements, because thankfully eventually I adore both of those placements now. I own so much of the shadow and realized that a lot of the shadow wasn't mine, but theirs, other people's and whatever. So I understand if that's the reason why people don't want to share, but if we are professionals and this is what so someone just on their website about hairdressing might not want to have their astrology chart, fair enough. But if this is what we do, I think it is really essential that we are upfront about our own placements. Yeah, so that's the only reason I think why we wouldn't, because we wouldn't want to be maybe even reduced. But that's the thing, you're not reduced. If anything, the chart is an explosion of someone. It's like, how long have you got? How many lifetimes have you got for me to tell you all the possibilities that this chart has? So there's no way of reducing someone down to a placement, or we do it as we speak because that's the only way we can communicate ourselves, but some kind of distilled language from the hugest of concepts down to some words that can fit into, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes of speaking. But that aside, other than so basically my point is, maybe a question to anyone who feels like sharing their answer, is that why do you hide your chart from public viewing? As in, why is it not available to everyone to see? And maybe it's not something you feel comfortable sharing publicly, but if you do, I'd love to know, because just curious. My Mercury in Gemini. And okay, I think that's it. I hope I hope this might spark some interesting conversations, or maybe even some change in some people's ways of doing, being an astrology reader, human design reader. Maybe I'll see many more charts available, and I would love to look at all of your charts. Like, I would love you to look at my own charts, and and figure out whether I'm for you in whatever way, as a friend or as a teacher or as an astrology reader or as a human design reader, or I don't know, entertainer. Okay, thank you for being here. And oh, hello, JF Sonne. Hi. Okay, hope this was helpful. And I'm just checking my comments. So no verse to this live stuff with comments. So yes, bye bye.